I had a phenomenal opportunity, one that I didn't really think I'd ever get the chance to. I got to interview someone to a game that I have been very much anticipating for about a year now, and I cannot thank the star Ernest Placido today for allowing the opportunity to sit down and ask just some granted basic questions. It is my first interview. I'm not exactly doing anything crazy here. I was relatively nervous going in. The brain was kind of, against me today. However, I do think that it could not have gone better. And of course, it was hard not to fangirl, which admittedly I did a little bit more than I wanted to. But I think it's all like reasonable, and there was no too awkward for it to be cool interactions. And so thank you everybody for wanting to listen to this conversation. And I hope everyone here is as excited for this game as I am. Anyway, let's get into it. So, Ernest Placido, the amazing solo developer of a phenomenal game called Pry Into the Void, thank you very much for, being in my first interview. It's an honor.
Hello.
Truly.
Happy to talk.
So I'm gonna give you the floor. Please tell us about the project, your journey from start till current.
So yeah, I'm working on Pry Into the Void, a monster taming JRPG published by Dangan Entertainment.
What made you want to start game development?
Start game development. It's just sort of something I picked up. I've been making games since I was 12. Just you'll find me on the internet. I'm not gonna say where because I'd rather people find that organically, and it will tie into a lot of my projects in the future. But yeah, I've been making games since I was 12, and it's just been naturally what I love doing. And there was a point where I felt like maybe I should stop making games. I started focusing more on academics and, getting my grades up, doing well at university. I studied computer science and philosophy at university. But then eventually I just realized it just wasn't for me. And I just went back to making games. And now I'm just focusing on making that work. And it makes me happy, so.
Was the monster tamer genre always love letter in your heart for you?
The main inspiration of this one is obviously the Shin Megami Tensei games. And it's a monster taming game in line with its inspiration. It's more of a love letter to Shin Megami Tensei more than monster taming in general. I just really like the Shin Megami Tensei games. The one in particular this is inspired by is Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey. It's one of my favorites. I love that game. And yeah, I hope people will play it and they get a similar vibe.
Yeah, it's a brilliant game, honestly. I remember playing it when I was young. It's a very when you're new to the Shin Megami series, is an extremely bizarre game, but
yeah. Strange Journey is one of the more abstract ones, and I feel like I'm trying to go for that with Pry Into the Void as well, just like this fascinating abstract world that you're just dungeon crawling through, weird imagery, stuff like that. I love it.
Now, it's no surprise that a very core theme of the game is moving on or death, right? At least that's my interpretation of it. Is there any other underlying plots or symbolisms that people can expect when playing the game?
You played the recent one with the new cutscene, right?
I have, yes.
Yeah, and I think that scene, it's not quite moving on. I'm guessing you played the original demo that had the other boss as well.
Yes.
It's been cut down a lot since then.
All right.
Wow, you played it all the way back then. That's old.
Yeah. Thank Gym Leader Ed for that.
It's not quite moving on. I'd say the main core themes of the game is responsibility.
Oh, okay.
How much you're responsible, how much can you control in your life.
I see. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense now, thinking of especially the beginning party members you can obtain and how you obtain them. Usually it has something to do with responsibility. Instead, I was thinking of moving on. But I mean, absolutely, that makes a lot more sense now that you pointed out.
There is an element of dealing with, trauma, things like that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that all ties into the idea of responsibility when these things happen. How responsible are you with your role in these kinds of events, things like that?
Was there any particular reason why you chose to go with a more down, sad, somber tone of the general game, or is that something that's exclusive to the demo? Like, will there be areas in the
No,
game that's a little bit more upbeat?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, obviously the monster designs are more lighthearted, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the monster designs are tongue-in-cheek.
Yes, yes. I found an odd sense of innocence in them.
Yeah.
Which what really truly brought me. I don't mean to interrupt you, but like it truly what brought my interest to the game. Like the party members aren't monsters; they're just like they're for the most part they're farm animals.
Yeah. At least at the start of the game.
Yeah.
I feel like they evolve. The designs of them evolve as you go further in. But for the most part, yeah. I'd say in general, the story of the game is quite somber. I'm dealing with a lot of stuff. I wouldn't say I was in the best frame of mind when I started the game. I was definitely in a space where I was just trying to get things out, and then it evolved into this. But yeah, I don't know if my next game would be as sad and somber. I don't want to make that my brand, but for this game, I started this back in 2021, so that was nearly 4 years ago. I'm in a completely different headspace now.
Early 2020s was hard for a lot of people, you know.
So, yeah.
But let me just make like it's not a bad thing, right? Having a somber tone. It may not be everyone's cup of tea, of course, but it certainly some like Amori, for example. Some of the best stories in gaming come for a more somber tone because they're not afraid to go there. Certainly like it adds oomph, you know, it adds power to whatever story you're trying to tell. If you don't want to make it your brand, that's up to you, but it's certainly not it's not a negative. That's all I'm saying. It's definitely not a negative.
Yeah.
So you are a one-man team, correct?
For the most part, I've got people working on music, and that's kind of it.
All right. Okay. Well, I was going to lead into the next question. The official soundtrack so far has been a very wide range within somberism, right? From upbeat somberism to intense,
metal.
You know, or metal as well. Yep. So was music that something that came naturally to you or your team, or did you have to go like somewhere deeper to like to bring it out?
So Jun mainly works on the metal tracks, and he's going to be supplying the main theme. A lot of the tracks are actually just stock music. This is my first game. We're trying to be as, you know, budget controlled as possible. Time as well. So a lot of the songs, I've had to dig far and wide for really good stock music. And I'm not ashamed to be using stock music, unlike other people, because I want to get this game finished at some point. Waiting until I'm able to get, you know, the right music from the right people can take forever. But I found Jun, and he's really good at metal music. He's been doing the music for all the trailers that people love, so that's been fantastic. Really good reception towards those. I'm happy to have him helping me out with this game.
Excellent answer. Yep, I'll definitely put a description to him if he has any public work or if he wants his name out there. I'll definitely put his name in the description below.
He's got Twitter and a YouTube channel. I can link you to them.
On a similar note, you know, going back to like the core art of the game. So the general aesthetics of the game, pastel / like water paint, in the same style as the OST. Did all the design, like the physical designs of the characters, did that come naturally, or?
What exactly are you talking about? Characters, backgrounds, or what? Because I feel like there's quite a dichotomy.
Let's start with like the party members, like not Joseph specifically. I want to get into him a little bit later. Yeah. The bunnies and the ducks, and like even like the main boss design of the new demo. Those kind of designs.
Okay. I'm gonna be honest with a lot of the monsters. Their designs are actually coming from sketchbooks and notebooks that I had as a child. For the most part, yeah. Trying to Divide is part of a collection called Project Wretched Garden, where every game is what I call a regurgitation of something I made in the past. I told you I used to make games back when I was like 12, and then before then, I used to be creative, make comics, things like that. What I'm doing right now is sort of just regurgitating all that and making them into something new. A lot of the monster designs are actually just coming from childhood notebooks and things like that. There's been mixed reactions to them, but I don't really mind. Started the game, you're starting with bunnies and chickens, and people have found that a bit weird, but I don't mind.
I like it, you
I
know.
like that.
To me, because I'm the art nerd here. I like to see symbolism, even though necessarily where it's not. I like the idea of like you start literally with like innocent creatures, and
Yeah.
I assume there are going to be a vast variety of like intense looking ones and goofy looking ones. So tell me about like some of like the background designs then.
A lot of them are created using pictures and then editing them to look like pixel art through a variety of filters. So, for example, there's one scene in the trailer where you see a bathroom. That's my actual bathroom in my apartment. Took that picture myself and made it into an image. Otherwise, sometimes I'll go out and about, take pictures. Or if I really can't find it, then I might just find like a public domain image out there on the internet and use that, and then turn it into a background.
Set design is something that I have never attempted before, so I would probably do the exact same thing.
It looks good though, right?
It looks phenomenal. Joseph is our main character. He is our rich orphan that is chosen by a higher power to save the world. What is like some inspirations behind his human design, his spirit design, and like his personality?
Again, this is where regurgitation comes back into play. There is an old game I made. People will find it somewhere if people are digging. You'll find old Joseph, and it was like something I made when I was like a teen and like a super edgy phase, and
all right,
that was the main inspiration behind Joseph.
It happened for a reason, and you now have a main character. Like I always look at the positive side of things, you know, like even if you weren't necessarily in like the best headspace when the character was designed, it's entirely how you utilize that character.
I'm looking at the original game I made. Obviously, I'm not gonna share it because I'd like people to
absolutely
find these things themselves. This was made February 12th, 2014, so this was over a decade ago.
Ooh.
And this was a completely different Ernest.
Taking a step back, the game itself, is every like quote unquote mob planned to be a party member? And if so, do you have an end game number of how many party members the player could have?
Yeah, every single monster is recruitable, except for bosses. And I have written a unique scenario for every single one of them. That was a pain. Some people on the publishing team will know how much of a pain I've gone through to do it. I did it, and I can confirm that I'm done with those. After 3 years writing those things, I don't have to write any more of them, and I'm so happy. I worked hard on those. I'd like to think I dig in more thought-provoking topics as you go through the game.
This might be a dicey question, and you don't answer it if you can't. But is there a number of how many party members you have planned for?
I'll have to count it. I didn't pay attention, to be honest, as I was making them. I think we're like between 60 and 70.
People always think like the base for like a Monster Tamer game is like, oh, just go 150, you know, like old Pokemon did. But I don't think people realize just how challenging that is. It's clear that the new demo has a lot more features, like game mechanics than previous demo. Is there any game mechanics or features that you decided to take out, or you want to implement, or have yet to be implemented?
I think mechanically it's done. I mean, the game's been in development for 3 years. It's gotten to a point where, like, you know, there might be small things I could tweak, the way some skills work, do a bit of balancing. But for the most part, I think mechanically the game is in its final state.
When someone buys the game, what is your intended lifespan of how long the game is going to be? If you can. This is another one of those dicey questions.
The thing is that I play the game, and then somebody else has a completely different playtime. And I found generally people have a much longer playtime than me. Like, for example, getting to the end of the demo, as it is currently with the cutscene, takes me about 30 minutes. Takes some people like an hour and a half. So that blows my mind.
I think it took me around 25 to 7 minutes because a lot of it I was familiar with, like the recruitment process. And then towards the end, I actually sat and read. But it took me around 20-25 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd say I'd target 30 for that demo. I'd say it'd be around like 10 hours maybe for the total game. And then of course there are other endings, other routes.
So there's multiple endings?
Multiple endings and a completely separate game mode that changes the game. The way the game works after you've played through the game one. And that was all promised in the Kickstarter, the original Kickstarter.
Dang, so. I wasn't aware of that. I'm sorry, I should have done my research. Yep. One thing I will say though is most likely because of the new item mechanic and like the tasks you can perform within battle to get extra goodies. I noticed that the game overall was like harder. Enemies hit harder. I don't remember if you necessarily did less damage, but my party members were certainly fainting a lot more. Do you think
I'd say instead of getting harder, the AI got smarter.
that
I've done a lot of tweaking to how the enemy behaves. I do want the player to be more conscious of what the enemy is doing, what type of skills they are doing, because too many JRPGs, you're just spamming attacks, dealing damage. I do want the player to be a little defensive in this game as well. Set yourself up with buffs, things like that.
So the last question I did have was, do you think people will find the game overall difficult? But I realize that's kind of like, it's a very immature question in retrospect, so I apologize for that. But I think the answer you gave was more than enough. So it's not going to be a walk in the park, but if people use their noggin and make good team compositions, then realistically they shouldn't have a problem.
I will say I am trying to make it easier than Shin Megami Tensei. It should be more accessible than Shin Megami Tensei. I think I've implemented it in a way that should be more accessible, in that it doesn't punish you as hard. For example, it autosave everywhere. The game also gives you more flexible tools for party composition once you get into the main game. So I think in general, the player shouldn't be feeling like, I'm stuck, I need to drop the game. I think there will always be... I think it should be easier to find a way to improve your party somehow in this game compared to the games it's inspired by.
Those were all the questions I had prepared. So let's just end it off with a very simple one. Is there any game outside of the one you're working on that you are playing currently?
That I'm playing currently?
Yeah.
A variety of stuff. I still need to finish off Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance.
Okay. I've yet to play it, but I have been meaning to. It's been on the wish list since it came out.
I hop in and out of Core Keeper. I've been enjoying that lately.
I just received it not too long ago for my birthday, so probably going to stream it. It looks like a lot of fun. People have been raving about it, so...
I am also a Balatro addict, and that's when I hop into
Balatro, that's the roguelike poker game, right?
Yeah, the poker card game, yeah.
I
want to learn from it. I love the way that everything just bounces around. I want to make a JRPG battle system that sort of has something similar going on, where everything just bounces around team composition. Everything just chains together.
One of my favorite game franchises is Disgaea, and that game's all about synergizing your team.
Disgaea's fantastic for it. You can have big numbers in Disgaea.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd say Disgaea would probably be the closest thing to a JRPG, being like Balatro.
Exactly. Well, I mean, thank you very much for your time. That's all the questions I have. I don't think I can think of any more realistically that you would be able to answer. It was an honor to have you here.
Thank you.
I mean it when I say it. I cannot wait to play your game.
I'm very happy to get it out there so you can play it too. It's been a long time development. I'm really happy that people are looking forward to it. I'm really glad people have been so receptive to the trailers, because I edit those myself as well. So.
Oh yeah. Better editing than me.
I'm glad people are enjoying those trailers.
Again, thank you for your time. Thank you everybody for watching. I hope you had a wonderful time. I hope you have a wonderful time.
Thank you everybody.
Until next time we meet, I hope you all have a fucking day. Peace.
Peace.